Hello, I'm Don Dane, and thanks for taking the time to come and visit my studio. Come on in.
Greetings once again. Today I come to you with a story from Greenwood, Missouri. Visual artist Don Dane will share his passion and his story in his world of art. Welcome to Spotlight on the Arts. Please join me with artist Don Dane from Greenwood, Missouri. Mr. Dane, welcome to Spotlight on the Arts. I'm truly excited to turn the spotlight on you today.
Thank you, Rick.
Well, this is your first visit with me on Spotlight on the Arts. I've been looking forward to your interview since our first phone conversation and visit to you and your website, where I discovered your great work of art. Well, Don, I'd really like to start things off, if I may call you by your first.
Oh, absolutely.
Share with the viewers a little bit about Don Dane, if you would.
Well, I started out my art career in about 2002 after retiring from Sprint. I worked as a telephone engineer for 26 years with Sprint. But all the time I was doing that, I was doing art shows along the way, and kind of how I developed myself to this point. And when I took early retirement, I hit the road and started doing my artwork full time. So been doing it since then, and settled down in Greenwood, Missouri, and happy to be back in Missouri. We lived in Kansas for about 30 years, all the time I was working for Sprint. And so now we're back in Missouri, and I can be technically classified as a Missourian again. So I'm glad to be back.
Oh, very good. Well, can you tell us how you was first inspired to become a visual artist? Kind of share your story, if you can, with the viewers out there in the world.
Well, I typically do Western artwork for the most part. I don't limit myself to that, but I got inspired sometime back through a friend of mine, Michael Swearingen, who was into Western artwork. We happened to be doing an art show in Olathe. That's where I first met him, and I was just blown away with his dynamic Western imagery. And he painted in watercolor. And so one thing led to another, and I asked him where he got his images from, and he told me about a rodeo school outside of Olathe. So he got me onto that, and then he and I would go there and get reference photos to paint from. And as I did that, most of my early pieces were done rodeo related. But as I grew and needing more and more material, I started branching out to cattle ranches. So typically I wanted to, once I got on the cattle ranches, I kind of did away with the rodeo subject matter and focused on contemporary cowboy, working cowboy material. And since then I do a little bit of that and some historical pieces and a lot of Native American pieces as well.
Oh, I see, Don. Very interesting. Your artwork speaks well for you, and we're going to share that later in the show with a little tour of your art and the stories behind those pieces. So I can't wait for that. Well, what continues to inspire you as an artist, Don?
Well, I like to go to art shows and see other artists' artwork and in the professional areas. So I've been introduced to some higher end professional artists who, once you see a professional's work, and it's all inspiring in itself. So that's pretty much what led me to try to focus on doing somewhat the same things and go that avenue.
I see. Oh, that's very interesting. Well, currently, can you share any venues where people can actually view your work? I want to thank you once again for exhibiting in the Call for Nature's Art, my show that's stemmed from people being on the show, the artists of different types of art there in Jefferson City, Call for Nature's Art. Thank you again for being part of that, and I look forward to hearing more about your artwork and others there from the viewers that seem to contact me daily. So thank you so much for being part of that show. Well, are there any other venues now that that people can go and view your work? I understand you talked to Dr. Paula Brown recently at the Lake of the Ozarks.
I did.
I believe that's Fine Arts Academy and Gallery there on the Strip in Bagnell Dam. Tell us about some of those.
Yeah, I was going through Bagnell Dam area, and based on your reference, I wanted to stop by and check out that gallery, and had the opportunity to meet her, learn a little bit about the gallery, and was pretty impressed. She's got a great lineup of artwork in there and artists. So I'll be getting back with her in the future. So
well, now you have artwork throughout the United States, I understand. Can you give us some of those locations for those people out in the western part of the United States or wherever?
Yeah, I had representation in Scottsdale, Arizona at the Ron Moyer Gallery, and he's since closed, so I don't have that anymore. And the gallery that represents me now is Leawood Fine Art in Leawood, Kansas. Right now they're doing more of a contemporary abstract show, so I don't have anything there right now for anybody to see, but hopefully I'll be getting some artwork back over there. And right now, pretty much just online, you can see most of my artwork on Facebook at Don Dane Art, or not .com, but Don Dane Art. And then I have a personal page as well, it's just Don Dane. So either one of those two, you can go there and kind of keep up with me on that. And if you have any questions, you can certainly message me right there, as well as Instagram. I'm on Instagram, just under Don Dane. So.
Well, great, sounds good. People can definitely worldwide reach you on the Instagram and on your website. So I want to thank you for that. Well, you have promised us a tour of your gallery and some of your works with those stories behind each. So I look forward to that tour. So we must take a break. So make yourself comfortable, if you would, while we look at some special messages. After the break, Don will fill us in on his favorite subject matter, the materials used, and the special ways of completing a work of art with maybe any special techniques that he would like to share with you that he uses. So, well, also, don't forget, we'll share some of his favorite works of art and then the story behind each and take that tour. There's much more here on Spotlight of the Arts, so stay with us. We'll be right back.
Creative, connection, control. Support the arts and be the change. 24 hours a day, 200 countries. The show must go on. Introducing the world's first exclusive platform for artists and creators of all kinds. The biggest stage on earth.
Stream Spotlight on the Arts on fanforme.com. Stream Spotlight on the Arts on GIAJ Global Media OTT Network. Google us or find us on Roku, Amazon Fire.tv, or Apple.tv.
Hi, I'm Rick Jey. And I'm Jeffrey Perl. And we're here to introduce you to GIAJ Global Media OTT Network. Hope you'll tune in. Tune in and watch all the great shows by independent producers, music, and film, and podcasts. Roku, Apple TV, Amazon Fire TV, and or Google us on GIAJ Global Media Network. Get your free download now. Thank you.
Welcome back, everyone, to Spotlight on the Arts. I continue with my special guest, artist Don Dane of Greenwood, Missouri. Well, Don, before the break, you shared a lot of information. So let's continue along those lines of thought and expression. If you would, Don, please describe your type of art and how that came about with your skills considered. So it's like, we'll talk about some favorite pieces, but what is your favorite subject matter and materials used in a project?
You know, for years I started out doing primarily pencil artwork and wasn't really into the color aspect at all. And again, I met a friend of mine who encouraged me to get into color. I was really detailed in all my pencil work. And I just want to give you a real quick example of the pencil. This is a print of a pencil drawing that I did. And so it's primarily, all I had to worry about is just, you know, the values of the piece and not so much the color. And so I stuck with that for a number of years, and I had other artists encourage me to get into color. And they told me, Don, if you could do the detail in color like you're doing with your pencil, you know, they thought I'd do well. So I kind of branched off into what I felt was an easier medium in color, which was watercolor. And so I've got an example of that here. And again, these are prints, but they're examples of color work that I've done. So watercolor for me wasn't too much of a problem. I just gradually build up layer and layer on it, but it takes me a long time to do. A lot of watercolorists like to be done with their paintings and will be a lot looser. And you'll see the techniques are totally different. Mine are real tight. I have a problem with that. Sometimes I need to loosen up, but I like the style and I've stuck with it. So those are some examples of my artwork. And watercolor is primarily the area I stay with when it comes to color, although I do paint in oils as well. And again, I'm just a slow painter. I don't get in a hurry, which allows me time to work with the mediums. So I'm pretty pleased with the way it is.
Well, that slow technique reminds me of an instructor that I had once. He said, I just piddle and putt. But that's where I take a lot of time also in my artwork. So
Yeah, that's
I can identify. I think we're a lot alike in that sense. Well, can you kind of step us through the process of starting and completing a project? Do you begin with a sketch first?
I do. All my paintings are worked up from photographs that I take, typically. Sometimes I'll get permission to use somebody else's photographs if I see something there I want to paint. And then I do a sketch and lay out the basic drawing on either paper or canvas, depending on if I'm using watercolor, pencil, or oil. And it gets the drawing in perspective. And then from there, I'll just start doing the underpainting and get the values laid out before I actually add color to it if I'm doing a color piece. But the process is the same, even if I'm doing a pencil. And then I just jump in and start working on the values.
I see. Now, with your oils and your watercolor, you talk about an underpainting. Do you start with a white canvas, or do you like a background, a color like a brown or what have you, to really punch out your oils as you continue on?
That's a good question. Sometimes if I'm going to put a scenery background in there, you know, that's something I kind of work around the foreground and then lay in the background. So it kind of depends. This example here that I got of this lady cowgirl, I liked using the negative space of the white background. So I don't know if you can see that. We'll try to get it up there. So that's an example where I left the white of the canvas or the paper in the background. And I do that sometimes even in an oil painting. So
I understand that fully too, especially working with clouds. A white canvas really adds to some of your highlights, your midtones actually.
Yeah.
Not to show the actual, should we say, you have to fill in the canvas, but sometimes I know a person can use that canvas.
you know, they call that negative space.
Negative space. Oh, great. Good point. That's another question. Do you teach classes at all?
I have given some workshops. I had kind of gotten away from that. I just, right now, I don't feel real comfortable with it, but I will on occasions. That's a whole nother area for an artist to get into.
Something to think about for the future. Well, great. Well, is there a technique or process really that you'd like to share that you could give a tip that you found that you overcame something that in that process that you might give a tip, might expedite things for another artist?
In my case, I try to just tell myself when I'm going into a piece that it's going to be experimental. You know, it's got to be what's going to be, especially with watercolor, because you can't really, what happens, sometimes those are happy accidents and they turned out better than you thought if you just let them go. But I try not to get stressed out about that, and I recommend when you go into painting or drawing, just do it for the fun of doing it, first of all. But, you know, try to relax and just to let things happen as you go along.
Well, Don, you know, watercolor is sort of shall we say, stressful to a lot of artists. So how have you overcome that? Did it come natural, or was that a process of, again, there's not too many mistakes you can make in oil because you can correct those. Is that the same case in watercolor?
Watercolor is a lot less forgiving than oil is. Like you said, you can actually paint over in oil and acrylic both. I don't work in acrylic much because it's a little bit too fast drying for me. I'm such a slow painter, you know.
I understand.
I figured if I have to do any medium to add any medium to acrylic, I might as well just move right on into oils. And I prefer water-based oils when I do paint in oil. That way I don't have to deal with the fumes, and I've had pretty good luck with it, and I like it.
I see. Now, COVID-19, we're still more or less coming out of that, but how's that affected you being able to exhibit at most venues? Has the pandemic actually affected your efforts to exhibit your own artworks?
It had. Matter of fact, 2020, when COVID hit, most of the art shows were shut down, and if there was any art shows, they were online. And so I did a few of those. For the most part, it just pretty much shut us down for a couple of years. And I worked, you know, primarily on Facebook, posting new pieces there, and made some sales through that. And occasionally, you know, the gallery would ask me about anything that I have, and I could send virtual pictures over the internet to any clients that might be interested.
Excellent. I see. Well, do you have any favorite pieces? We're showing many of your art pieces online. I bet you have some favorites. Would you like to?
You know, I do.
Mention some of those.
Yeah, this piece here that I was using as an example earlier, it's called Dragon Calves. And again, let me get that where you guys can see this plane. Good. This particular piece is of Bob Morehouse, who is the general manager of the Pitchfork Ranch. I would typically go out there, stay a couple of days, and then I would photograph the cowboys while they're working. Well, Bob just happened to be working on his horse, and they were dragging calves from one lot to another. And so I snapped off a photo, and that's what I worked this piece up from. This piece was done in all pencil, and of course I just had to deal with the values in this. But this has this is very meaningful to me for the reason being that's where I was on 9/11, and so every time I see this piece, I think of that day and all that happened during 9/11. So it's very meaningful to me.
I can see where it would be. Well, Don, you do commission work. I guess I should say, do you do commission work? And if yes, would you like to share your website address again, email or phone number, where
Yeah.
we might reach you for more information?
On occasions, I do commission pieces. I don't typically like to do portrait type work just as a person sitting there looking at you. I like to incorporate, if I do somebody, have them being active and doing something. They could be riding their horse or I just like to create a little bit of motion in a piece. So on occasions, yeah, I do a commission. And again, I work from photographs, so it's all based on the quality of the photographs I've got to use as a reference. But if anybody's interested in doing that, you can get a hold of me through my website at Don Dane Art, DonDane.com, sorry. And then also you can get a hold of me on Facebook at Don Dane or Don Dane Art. Either one of those two sites, you can just message me through Facebook and then I'll get back with you.
Excellent. Well, very good. Well, we've talked about a tour, so I'd like now to step aside and reconnect and let you take us on a tour of your beautiful gallery and artwork. So,
Sounds good.
Let's go to that tour.
Hi, what you're looking at on the wall back here are pieces that I've collected over time. The buffalo skull is something that inspires me to do the Native American pieces that I do. And then I just love having this stuff in my studio, so I can, it just kind of gives me a feel for that period. And then the shirt is just a buckskin shirt that belonged to a friend of mine who did some trapping, and I just loved the look of that, and it helped inspire me to do more Native American pieces. So I like having these pieces hanging in my studio just for inspiration mostly. And then a few other collectibles I just kind of added to it with the powder horn, which is right here. And then there's a clay pipe up there from the period, and then also a medicine bag and some beads. So just stuff that just helps inspire me. And these all kind of lead into pieces like I'm doing over here in pencil. This piece here is actually Moses Brainsplunty, who's an actor, also plays on Yellowstone, the series on TV. And he was one of my models out at Easton, Kansas for the American Frontier production. And so I would go out there and do photo shoots and get material for doing these pieces. And then not just the black and whites, but also for oil paintings and watercolors. And then my other model, who's also out there at Easton, Kansas at American Frontier production, was Thomas White. And he's painted a lot. Both these guys have been painted by a lot of different professional artists. And so they're wonderful models. I've had a good experience with both of them. And I'm very pleased to have the reference material that I have shooting from the photo shoots. Now, this piece here was worked up from the photograph that I took at the Pitchfork Ranch in West Texas. I spent a lot of time there photographing the Cowboys for some contemporary working cowboy material. And so it was a beautiful morning that morning. It was very crisp. And this is titled Warm Morning Sun. And just another example of my oil paintings. Thank you. Wanted to give you an example of one of my wildlife paintings. I do occasionally do wildlife, which we hadn't talked a lot about, but this piece right here is of a bison. If you call it buffalo, some people get confused with like water buffalo. It's just one of the many species of buffalo. So this is a bison, American bison. And so created this piece from a reference photo that I had. I'm not exactly sure where I got that material from, but it was one of my trips out in Wyoming. But it didn't have this, the nostrils with the buffalo breathing. I added that effect, and I'm kind of happy with the way it turned out. But this will give you an example of one of my wildlife pieces, which I do frequently. Rick, I wanted to share some pieces in our family room, some additional paintings that I've done. And these are, a lot of times I'll just store these on the wall when they're not in an art show. So I wanted to share these with you. And then if we can go back to that center piece in the middle between these two pieces, this one is actually a giclée print that I bought from another inspirational artist and a great painter in watercolor. His name is William Matthews. And he was a big inspiration for me to get into color. And so I bought this piece from him, and it's helped me develop my own style. I actually met William Matthews, and he suggested to me, he said, Don, if you can find an artist that you really like their style, just paint like that, and then eventually you'll branch off and start your own little technique. And little did he know that he is my inspiration, and that's exactly what I've done. I bought this piece and was able to study his techniques a little bit, but I love it. I don't paint exactly like him, which is exactly what he had told me would happen. And anyway, I have a lot of admiration for that artist, so just wanted to share that with you. Rick, I want to share with the folks out there another piece that I did for Silver Dollar City. I did Silver Dollar City for about 12 years, and this was one of the poster paintings that I did. It's actually a graphite drawing, and the subject matter in this piece is Buck Taylor. Buck is a full-time actor. He played Newly O'Brien in Gunsmoke, and so this is him in the middle with the badge on, as Newly O'Brien from Gunsmoke. And then I also put him in there. All three characters in this piece are Buck Taylor. And Buck, this is more of a contemporary piece of him down here, or picture of him. And then this character up here at the top is also Buck, as his character Turkey Creek Johnson in the movie Tombstone. So I kind of made a compilation here for the poster to incorporate all those characters and focus on Buck Taylor for the poster. And again, this was done for Silver Dollar City down in Branson, Missouri. Rick, I wanted to share with the folks 3 watercolors I have that I keep hanging in our family room. The one on the far right is Thomas White. He's one of my models that I used at the photo shoot we did in East End, Kansas at American Frontier Production. So I just wanted to share that watercolor with you. And then the one in the middle is one I had painted from a reference photo that I got from Bob Morehouse, who's the general manager of the Pitchfork Ranch. This is one of many cowboy scenes out there on that ranch, and I spent 2 or 3 days at a time when I would go out there and get my own reference material. So I really appreciate what Bob did by letting me come out to the ranch and get those. The last one on the left is also a scene from the Pitchfork Ranch, and we typically would stand out of the way and not interfere with the cowboys while we're photographing and take pictures to paint from, and that's where that one came from. And that's called Moving Cows. And thank you again for letting me share these with everybody, and I appreciate that. Folks, I just wanted to share just a tad bit of the back part of my studio. So this is an area where I would typically come back here and do an oil painting. So this is just my easel set up and ready to go. While we're back here, I wanted to also show you some of the posters I've created. This is by far not anywhere close to the total that I've done over the years, but all these are some that I've framed and have up here just to kind of reflect back on. Earlier, I showed you Buck Taylor, who was the pencil drawing that I'd done earlier, and I'll show you. This is the actual poster that Silver Dollar City produced with Buck Taylor on it. And I'm trying to look at the year on that one's like 2012, so that's been a while. And then there's different events that I've done posters for. Used Cowboy Poetry Gathering that I did down at in West Texas at Cal Farley's Boys Ranch. I did that for about 6 years. The one up here at the top is an example of that. Did one for Trails End in Sedalia 1 year. And then I've done a couple of Bluegrass Festival posters, and there's a couple examples of these right here. And then I've done, I think, 3 different ones, which are right here for Pigeon Forge, Tennessee. That was a fun event to do. Just more examples of the cowboy festivals that I've participated in and was featured artist for. The one up there at the top is Belinda Gale, a female cowboy singer, cowgirl singer. And that was the only year that we did a salute to the great American cowgirl for Silver Dollar City's event. So I just wanted to share those with you, and I really appreciate you guys coming to my studio and taking the time to view this. Thank you so much.
Well, Don, we're just about out of time. That was a great tour, and I thank you for sharing with the world, thanks to our, should we say, our streaming networks, the GIAJ Global Media Network. This will be viewed on YouTube for a while, and naturally give you a copy to use at your convenience. I would like to ask you if you have any closing words for those artists that maybe have stuck a little bit and nowhere to go, and you get stuck once in a while. And do you have any words for those viewers worldwide that you might, words of encouragement?
I had the opportunity to talk to a lot of young folks when I was at Silver Dollar City over the years, and of course they get all inspired when they see somebody that's trying to make a living at this. And but I've always encouraged them to try to be patient and not get in too big of a hurry to jump into this, but have fun with it, enjoy what you're doing, and don't make it so challenging that you don't enjoy it anymore.
Well, is it marketing challenging to you? Is that something that a new artist or an artist that's been painting for 30 years, is that something you should be worried about or pressured on?
Yes, and that's an excellent question too, Rick. One of the things that the colleges are not teaching enough of in the area of fine art is the marketing side of the house. Mm-hmm. And there's a lot to know when you want to gear a particular style, or in this case, my subject matter is Western, so you have to think about how you want to advertise and so on. So there's a lot to think about.
So you do your own marketing, or do you have someone that you turn to?
Well, I wish I
those
did.
Marketing agents. Well, that is same exact words by Gary Lucy in the interview. That's still on YouTube. Gary Lucy talked about, he's talked amongst many colleges, universities across the United States, and he talked about that the marketing is never talked about, or should we say, taught. So that's a good point. Well, it's been a pleasure having you on Spotlight on the Arts. I've looked forward to it, and your art speaks well for you, and so blessed, I guess you'd say, that I could spend this time with you today and share your passion. Do you have any farewell messages for the world, or friends, family, or other artists?
Well, I'm just so grateful for this opportunity to share my work in my studio with everyone out there, and I hope you've enjoyed it. And certainly if you have any questions for me, don't hesitate you could call me. My number is area code 913-829-3422. Be happy to talk to you. A lot of times I mentor young people once in a while if they've got questions, and I welcome those calls. So feel free to give me a shout if you need to, or go to my website, dondane.com, or my Facebook page, Don Dane. And again, you can message me from there if you'd like. So thank you again, Rick. I really appreciate the opportunity to be here.
Well, thank you, sir. Well, that wraps up another great show. Look at the artist Don Dane from Greenwood, Missouri. I think you've learned a lot along with me, and I want to thank Don once again for sharing his passion and his world of art here in Greenwood, Missouri. I'm Rick Jey saying, until next time, take care, be healthy, and be happy.
Rick Jey Presents Spotlight on the Arts.